Before we make a start on the formal proceedings today, you know what goes on in Estero to make Estero such a beautiful place that it is there's a great many people who do very, very many things for which maybe they're not, you know, that it's not, that people are not fully aware of what they do. I call them the unsung heroes here in Estero, and there are a great many of them. And I'd like to say a few words about two of them today, because Lou and Louise Frattarellis, who have been stalwarts here, which I'll explain in a minute, of doing so many wonderful things, are taking retirement and relaxing as they move forward in their age to look after one another. Let me just say a few words about them, if I may. So after retiring from the Department of Navy and the Naval Sea Systems Command, supervising shipbuilding up in Groton, Connecticut, they moved to Florida, setting up in the Brooks first, and then subsequently at the Preserve in Estero. Lou became very active as a member of the ECCL, that's the organization which of course became Engage Estero and has been here in the Estero area for the last 25 years. And he was working as a member of the Transportation Committee for many years. He was also active in the community, serving on the CDD board. Both Lou and Louise worked hard to establish the village of Estero as a municipality at the very end of 2014. Some of you will have been here at that time, maybe some not, but that was an exceptionally important time to prevent, in effect, Bonita Springs annexing even more than they actually did do at around that time. In 2016, Lou became a founding member of the East Corkscrew Alliance, a group addressing growth and mining issues affecting the neighborhoods and people living along East Corkscrew Road. He continued working with the ECCL and Engage Estero and became a director of the Transportation Committee in 2019. In 2020, Lou and Louise became member volunteers with the Estero Forever Foundation and members of the Estero Forever Foundation's club. They both spent countless hours at the driving range. When that was going to be closed down after the village bought it, it still, of course, was being run by a team of volunteers. And I know that many golfers who, of course, couldn't go to other places to practice were delighted to have that opportunity. And I'm pleased to say that there are plans, of course, to have a new driving range in the years ahead at the new sports complex that's being developed. But anyway, Lou continued to serve as the Engage Estero Transportation Committee Director and the chair of the East Corkscrew Alliance through till August of this year. Lou's personality was instrumental in healing the divide between the Greater Estero communities and the developers. They have both spent countless hours conducting research, attending meetings, and sharing information affecting the Greater Estero area. Their behind-the-scenes efforts during the last decade sparked and supported numerous improvements for our community. Their impact and their contribution continue to be a legacy to this civic-minded community. So I personally and all the Engage Estero team, and I hope all of you in Estero, would like to thank Lou and Louise for all their hard work. And here they are. Absolutely wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I don't know what we're going to do without you. And you've been a good friend to me, Lou, as well, of course, and Louise, and I'm so grateful personally. All right, well, hard to follow that, really, isn't it? Well, I have, I guess, good news and bad news. Sadly, our speaker for this morning, Mary Gibbs, has to be up in the north of the US for family reasons. However, when we heard that she wasn't going to be here, we didn't want to change the topic of this morning's meeting, because we know how important it was for all of you who wanted to be here to hear what was going on. Now, you may or may not know, but during the last month or so, I, together with Mark Nowitzki and my colleague, who's put this lovely report together, Kate, I spent numerous hours putting this together and have done so over the last 3 years. So if you don't mind, I will take you through what I'm sure that Mary was going to do this morning. So, and later, of course, our speaker, who is Kevin Karnes, is going to be talking about the importance of title fraud, an issue which unfortunately can affect people, and there are ways and means, of course, of overcoming that, which he'll explain to you when he speaks in a few minutes' time. So, what I'm going to talk about then are a number of the key developments that are actually currently taking place, and one very big one that will take place very soon that's going on. This particular report that I showed you is 61 pages and covers all of the developments and urbanization issues that are going on in Greater Estero. You'll find this on our website. It was issued, in fact, earlier this month. And as I said, took a great deal of time to produce. We don't expect you, of course, to read it all from cover to cover, but there may be things that you wanted to know about, that there is perhaps a particular development taking place near you, and then you'd be able to spot it and look at the index that there is in the front of this book. And obviously, you could then update yourselves on what's happening close to you, perhaps. So there are both issues that relate to commercial developments, as well as, of course, those that relate to residential developments as well, both inside and on the outskirts of Estero. What I did want to say is something that maybe not everybody is aware of. I think there's a concern that, because now we are a village that's incorporated, that the issue relating to planning and zoning in our area is totally controlled by the Estero Planning and Zoning Board. And that's true up to a point, but what is also true is that much of what's happening in terms of the developments was put in place when the land was registered with Lee County back in the 1980s, 1990s, and maybe even sometime before then. And those speculators who thought maybe for the future that there would be a lot of development going on here eventually, of course, were sitting on this land, which was already zoned because of the way they asked for whatever development they thought might take place to occur well into the future. And because of that, when a developer may have bought that land, or if the individual company was a developer in the first place, then they are, of course, entitled by the registration of that land to go ahead and do what they wanted to do up to a point. But of course, the village does have the say in terms of what the development would look like, how it's shaped, what goes into it, and so on and so forth. Now, some of those registrations may perhaps have been in the beginning only for, let's say, residential purposes, okay? So now, if the developer wants to actually put commercial property on that land, they do have to apply now to Estero's Planning and Zoning Board to be able to do that. And if you look at any of the minutes of the meetings, you will see sometimes that the village may have agreed to what's called mixed use. Now, what's mixed use? Well, of course, as the name implies, it's a combination of both the development, the residential development and commercial development. And some of you may think, well, why would they want to do that? But the answer is that actually if you have commercial development on the land where you're putting the residential properties, it does cut down the number of traffic journeys that people might make. Obviously, if you have on your doorstep many of the things that you might want to go shopping for, then you don't have to go very far. And in fact, I went over yesterday to which I'm going to talk about in a second, to the stock development. That's the development that's just past Lowe's, where you will see a very, very lovely array of shops and various developments there, commercial developments, and alongside that, a number of really very magnificent apartments. And so often those people who live there don't have to go hardly anywhere. They can walk or even take a bike just very close by. So there is a way and a means of helping to reduce transportation by having mixed developments, which a lot of people maybe don't fully understand. And as I said, the Planning and Zoning Board is often in a very difficult situation between the demands of developments and the public. Obviously, I think a lot of us would probably like to see the thing stay as it is. But on the other hand, if there is development going on, then of course, Estero becomes quite an attractive place for people to come to, even if we wouldn't want more people to come here. But the converse of it is really important. If you travel to a number of other countries or even in the United States, where those municipalities have not dealt with the idea about what they should do to attract more people to their organization, to the area in the future, of course the whole thing starts to go downhill, and so do the property prices. So to have an attractive place like this, even though we may not want to see more people coming here, does have very important consequences for us for the future, not just in maybe traveling being more difficult, but at least supporting what we have and of course encouraging people to use more things here. So I just wanted to make those comments first. Now, what I'm going to talk about today, because we can't talk about too much, but I picked several issues which I wanted Mary to talk about. And these are, first of all, what's called Estero Crossing, now Corsa, the one that I just talked about, which is here. This is right next to Lowe's, which is here. This is Corkscrew Road along here, and I have a bigger map in a second. The next one I'm going to talk about is the FL Star development that's north of Broadway and the east of US 41, that's here, okay? And then the Woodland development, which is the big one which you've probably seen right across the road from US 41 on the northwest corner of Coconut Road and I-41 here. And then, I beg your pardon, the Woodfield development is here, I beg your pardon. And then I'm going to talk about the Jones-Lang-LaSalle, which is opposite Genova, which is here. Yeah. And then this very big one, you can even see, thanks to Kim Daly, my colleague who does so very much to enhance all the things that we provide for you, you can see that this is actually the largest area here, which was the Hospital Corps of America land that they own. That's 100 acres here. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, even though that's not being developed right now. So in a larger area, you can see what I just talked about. The same places, of course, but just the larger map. Okay, so that's what I'm going to talk about now in just a moment. So this was actually a photo I took yesterday. This is the Corsa development here, which is so very lovely. If you ever do get a chance just to go over and have a little look, you'd be amazed at how beautiful that area really is. They've done a magnificent job in my view. And again, the style of this fits with much of what you see in Estero and has been continued with from the very early stages that Don Eslick, back in the very early 2000s, spoke to Mary Gibbs, who was then the planning and zoning manager at Lee County, to make sure that we didn't have a concrete jungle in our midst. Oops. So, what do we have here then in this particular development? Well, We have 6 three-story luxury apartment buildings. They're nearly now all finished. That accounts to 306 units. So roughly, if you extrapolate the number of units by 2.2, which is normal for how many people would be there, then we would have about 750 people living in these apartments. 60,000 square feet of commercial properties are there, pedestrian-friendly benches and lush landscaping, and there are, of course, residents and indoor and outdoor seating and so forth. Now, in addition, as I said, I mean, I haven't been inside them, but it does really seem very lovely. And the apartments offer luxury living. A lot of people have already moved in, so obviously a lot of people are, I think, pleased by what they see there. State-of-the-art fitness center, unique bowling and swimming pool, and cabanas. So that's really, an enormous development. And here you see some of the various commercial developments that are already there. And some of you may even have shopped in some of these places. I know I have, with going to Batteries Plus and several of the other places which are there. And that's what I was saying, that these places are right on the doorstep of that particular development. The next one I wanted to talk about, which is the development north of Broadway and east of US 41. That's quite a big tract that you've probably seen, flattened. And now there is the infrastructure being put in there. So what is all this going to entail, you may ask? Well, it's a residential development on 34 acres. Not quite as big as the one on the Woodfield development that I mentioned on Coconut and 41, but still pretty big. And they're going to put in 3 multi-story buildings with 100 units each. And then they've also had agreed with the village of the Planning and Zoning Board 10 townhomes for a total of 310 units. So that would equate to about 680 people in that particular development. There is approval for 200,000 square feet of non-residential use, and also in that area 125 room hotel, as you can see there. So that's again a very big development. They have plans to use 30,000 square feet of non-residential land in phase 2. Only phase 1 is being started right now. And 2 of the residential buildings will be mixed use. In other words, they will have commercial properties on the ground floor of these developments. And in the other one, there will be, again, non-residential use on the ground level. As I mentioned, a likely population of around 680. The third building will include certain amenities like a public pocket park, 2 pickleball courts, a pool area, and although not confirmed, a passive park. So that's what's likely to work in that particular development that you see when you drive up 41 on the right-hand side going north. What about this one? Well, this is a very lovely development. This is called the Woodfield development. That's where you may remember a great many of the rubbish that was collected from Irma was dumped on that site as a temporary measure. So that's why you'll recognize where this is. Now, originally, this particular property was actually owned, the land was owned by Lee Health. But they decided that probably they didn't feel comfortable about doing the development themselves, their focus, of course, being on the core business of healthcare. And really, they didn't want to get into the development area, really. So they sold that land. However, you may or may not remember, but I do, that Lee Health took a lot of time to actually explore with the public what sort of things they thought would be very helpful to have on that large acreage. It's actually 45 plus acres, which you'll see on this chart. So there you go, it's 45.6 acre development. And they produced with the developer that they were working with, or the designers at the time, a very lovely outlook, which in fact they submitted to the Village Planning and Zoning Board, even though they hadn't sold the land at that point. So when the new developer took it over, the village and Lee Health hoped that the new developer would follow much of what had actually been agreed by the public and them in those early phases of this development going on. And in fact, that's what's happened. And although, again, as I say, nobody wants to see huge development going on, but if there is, of course, it's always important to see how very nice and fitting in with what we have here in Estero it would be. So we have in this particular development 596 residential developments, units, as you can see. I think that equated to something like about 1,300 individuals living in this development, but it will have offices, retail, restaurants, and other related uses, and we'll have this Spanish colonial revival architecture, which actually will be very lovely, I think. And you may have noticed that there is already started some development going on. That's because the infrastructure is being put into place right now. And this phase one will also include 2 apartment buildings to begin with, of between 291 or 296 actual residential units. There'll be parking garages, retail space in phase one, and apparently a restaurant row on the southeast corner close to US 41. That's kind of close to the junction where you have Coconut Road and US 41, in that sort of corner. But there are a lot of other things that will happen there. Obviously, eventually, there'll be additional retailing, dining, along with public amenities, green spaces, plazas, walkable pathways, which was in the original plan that I know Lee Health had worked out with their initial developer. And so overall, this kind of just is a summary of what I just mentioned, but there will be a 7.6 acre indigenous preserve area along the western and northern borders. And interestingly, although there was some consternation about many people who thought that they would put a traffic light very close to the traffic light on 41 and Coconut Road, which of course is a very busy intersection. But because that traffic light, which would be to the west of that junction, was not going to be very far away, it was only going to be like a couple of 100 yards or so, there was a lot of concern that maybe there would be a lot of backup on that particular traffic light. And also, with traffic coming from the development down at where London Bay have their development down by the Hyatt, down at the bottom end of Corkscrew. Of course, there'll be people coming up from there. Then with a traffic light, they may not even be able to get out. So the agreement has been to put in a roundabout. Of course, being a Brit myself, I don't mind roundabouts, but I know Americans are not very happy with roundabouts, but I am sure that when it's there, it will do a much better job than a traffic light. I promise. So it's going to be very nice with this lovely design. They'll have a clubhouse looking over the lake up in the area, and I think this lovely color scheme of taupe linen. I mean, it wasn't me that suggested this by any means, but I think with these kind of accents and the fact that building height will be limited, the design will be an extremely nice one. So obviously, while nobody wants to, as I've already said many times, see these developments move ahead, it will be a very, very nice addition, I think. So, moving on. This now is the Jones LaSalle Americas development, which is on the west side of Genova. So if you think that although this is a stylized drawing, but let's say this is via Coconut going up here, and over on this side is, of course, the development that's already there. then this is, of course, on the west side of Via Coconut, and up here, of course, is Corkscrew Road, just to give you the perspective, okay? And so, what's happening here? You may have seen, if you've gone up Via Coconut, that all along this edge of the road are kind of covers that actually doesn't allow you very much to see inside of there, of course, at the moment. But they have started with the development, and what's going to go there, you may feel. So it's a 20-acre development, a little smaller, of course, than certainly the Woodfield development that I just spoke about. It's going to be a mixed-use development. They're going to have a 1-acre park. There'll be 330 multi-family units. So again, somewhere in the region of about 700 individuals, probably when it's all filled up, will be living there. And there'll be 330 multifamily units, as I've said, and 10,000 square feet for a church. In addition to that, they will have amenities for a dog and pocket park, multi-use path. And one of the things that I know the village is anxious to try and get established there, because it's not very far if you were to cross the road from here. Of course, over this side and below Genova is where the sports park is going to be, okay? Now, equally, going up alongside here is the railway. The Seminole Railway goes up here, which of course they're going to turn into a bike path. Yeah? So, in many ways, I hope you think, and I do, it makes sense if somehow there is a connection from over here for people who are biking up here and want to go to the sports park to get across this way. So I think that they are very looking at, and the plans may already be in place on this, to have a link between the Seminole Railway bike path that will be developed eventually, to at least have some sensible links so that people can get to where they would like to go much more easily and less dangerously than, you know, otherwise might be the case. So I just thought I'd share that with you. Some of the other things that will probably go in there, it's not finalized yet, but you can see the list on this particular slide. So there'll be convenience food and beverage stores, perhaps drug and hardware stores, housing and office furnishings, and so forth. And even an insurance company, dry cleaning, library, post office, and medical and dental labs. And in a sense, that kind of ties in with what I started talking about, doesn't it? You know, being mixed use and with all of those things available for people, you know, they wouldn't have to go terribly far, you know, for a lot of the things that they may need. So at the moment, they've also agreed with the Planning and Zoning Board that there wouldn't be any underbuilding parking, but it's replaced with garages and carports. Not actually unlike the development that I first spoke about by Lowe's, the stock development. That's kind of like this. The height of the mixed-use buildings won't be very high. They've been reduced from 3 stories to 2, so it's not going to be, you know, huge. And as you may or may not have seen, but if you do go up there, you'll find that the ground was broken just a little earlier in mid-August. And although we don't have an exact completion date, it's probably likely to be about 2026. My last one, before I see if there are any questions, and I've tried to be as swift as I can, is this one. Now, this particular area, which is the very large 100-acre development, which is north of Williams Road, where the Hertz building is, not Hertz Arena, but the Hertz offices, right? On Williams Road, on the south side of Williams Road and 41. This particular area is on the north side of Williams Road and 41 on the east side, so on the right-hand side. That's obviously the area before you get up to the petrol station and the bank like Chase Bank and Publix, which is of course very close to the corkscrew end, right, of that road. Sure? You with me? Okay. And so that's a very, very large area. Well, the organization, the Hospital Corps of America, has now actually, I think, largely sold that particular property. They may have a small amount left for their own purposes, but largely speaking, that's been sold. And as Barry Friedman and I now have regular meetings with the village management. Steve Sarkozy has been very generous in giving us his time on various occasions to talk to him and have an exchange about concerns that we might bring from you, the public, to his attention. But equally, he shares with us some of the things that have been going on, and that's what I've been able to do today with all of you. Now, the interesting thing about this particular development, if you remember that the Woodfield development on the corner of 41 and Coconut Road was just over 45.9 acres, right? This is 100 acres. That's more than twice the size of that, right? It's enormous. So, it's very special because of where it is in relation to Estero as a community. And because of that, there's going to be a very careful review of what happens there. There are no plans that have been submitted yet, but Steve Sarkozy did share with us that this is going to be a very, very important area for us to have developed. There will, of course, he said, be a considerable amount in that property that will not be built on. I think I recall him saying that there was something like 20 acres of the 100 that will be devoted to water, to pool, to lakes and so forth. Apparently a very large one. But as I've put here, I mean, based on my own, based on my own feelings and what he has said, this is really the key site, without a doubt, because of its size and its location in Estero. And although, of course, we can't yet control or see what the developer will do, I know that the village is very keen on having this as a recognizable, very special property. And my other understanding is that one of the key commercial developments that is looking to go in there is Whole Foods. Yeah. So, of course, they are part of the Mercado, as you know, if you've been down there. And I guess in some ways, because of just the general discussion about what may go on here, that will be, of course, a very important anchor store along with other things that would obviously be there. So I can't, nor can the village, tell you exactly yet what's going in there, other than to say, watch this space. And of course, we on Engage Estero will do our utmost to give you as timely an update as we possibly can on all of those goings on. So I hope my talk to you didn't disappoint. I know it would have been nice to have Mary here, and I know she's very disappointed that she couldn't be here. But given, as I said, all the work that Mark and I and Kim Daly has done to put this document together, and I would certainly urge you to go to the website to look into many of the other things that are taking place, which of course I couldn't possibly have time to go through today. But if you do have any questions for me, I'll certainly be happy to help before we hand over to Kevin Karnes, who is going to talk about you know, the issues that obviously he came here to talk about. So anyway, any questions? Let me put the lights on for a second. Yes, we do have a roving microphone. Oh, this one. Maybe I'll have to give it to you to ask the question.
Yeah, I'm wondering when the park is opening across from Koreshan and when they're going to put the bridge in on 41 to cross over between the canoes and Koreshan.
Okay. Well, the 100 acre, that is actually also a 100 acre area that combines the land that's on the east side of 41 with the Koreshan Park. They're still in the very early stages, of course, of putting in phase 1. I know that, in fact, at the December meeting, which will take place here on the 11th of December, we will have Chris, who works with Mary, giving an update on exactly that particular issue. I don't really know very much about what's their time frame is or what the plans are. I know that they've had a lot of discussion with the public and got input for that area, but Chris will be talking about that here on December the 11th.
It was supposed to open, I went to that walking ceremony, it was supposed to open in October. Not so?
No.
Oh.
All right, other questions? Yes.
You didn't mention the development which is across from Genova on the northeast corner, where there's supposed to be 154
Correct.
townhomes. Has
Yes.
that been approved yet?
Yes. Yes, it has. And again, that one is obviously covered in the report. They did reduce it. I think it was originally planned for about 170 something homes, and they got them to reduce it. And I also know that the Planning and Zoning Board initially wasn't overly happy with the design that was being proposed for those homes. But I know that they've got access now both on the east and the west side of that development, which will aid you know, people who are living there and obviously make it less of a bottleneck on Sandy Lane, which is where they will go in there from. But I think that development will start in the reasonably near future on that.
Which one are you talking about?
We're talking about on Corkscrew Road to the east side of Sandy Lane. There's a big gap there.
Right.
That's it was going to be originally a hospital. Yes, yes,
Assisted living.
correct. It was going to be assisted living, but then that got thrown out and changed, and now they're doing 150 homes there.
Okay.
Homes
Yep.
there?
Yes, 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 individual.
Summercrest.
Well, there we are. Barry says it's called Summercrest.
Summercrest?
Summercrest, yes.
Yes. My question is, there is a field in front of Hertz, beautiful green grass field. Is that still owned by Hertz? Because I'm thinking that's the last set of grass I'm going to see. I might, yeah. So that is my question to you. I hope you can answer that.
Well, that's a very good question. I don't have an immediate answer for that. I do think it is Hertz, but I'm not 100% sure. So I will check into that, and I'll post the answer on our website for you. But I don't know the answer to that one. But actually, from the point of view of green grass, there is one little surprise. There is the development on Ben Hill Griffin, which is, as you go north to Costco, okay? On the right-hand side, you may have seen a clearing of land which was actually on the FGCU property. Originally, I thought that that land had actually been sold by FGCU to a developer, but I was wrong. It's not. It's still owned by FGCU, and they've told me that they are keeping that as green space, just to give you a little thrill that yes, there is some green space there. But actually, to be fair, you know, the village actually has bought quite a number of acreages within Estero, not for development, but to keep out from development. I forget the exact total number now, but of course they bought some where the school was going to go. just north of Corkscrew Road and Three Oaks Parkway before you get to the post office, right? On that right-hand side, well, there is no school going there, and the village stepped in and made sure there was no other development going there because they bought the land. And it's part of the way in which the village is looking at providing some means of avoiding flooding in the future, and the whole issue of resilience. And they are very focused on that to make sure that, you know, when we have these terrible storms come through, they are focused on making sure that we have our place here as far as we possibly can. But anyway, other questions? Let me, yes.
Kind of a few questions. I thought we had like a 45-foot limit on the top of how high something could be built up. No?
No.
That was never a standard? Because
No.
that's 70 foot and on the
Yep.
41, that's normal and fine.
Yep.
Okay, then also, it seems to be an awful lot of apartments versus permanent residence, permanent ownership, and you know, taking good care of their properties because they're owners. Is it the best use of that many properties? And now that you talk about this 100-acre thing that's gonna be prominent, gosh, if that's apartments too, I'm gonna frown. You know, it's the apartments of Estero instead of, you know, the lovely village of Estero. And then another one would be the a place from across from Genova and the sports park. That
Yes.
rendering looked beautiful with the winding sidewalk, but I think there's a sidewalk along the curbside. So would the developer be destroying that sidewalk and then building this beautiful aesthetic sidewalk, which would be great because it looks good, and walking would be great.
Right, well, a lot of questions there, but I guess the issue really is that, again, when the original plans for the land was taken up, as I said in the beginning, with Lee Health, there is a certain limit on what the Planning and Zoning Board can do. And I guess that developers obviously want to try and gain the maximum amount of return from what it is that they put in there. And clearly, you know, you can get a great many more units if you put apartments in than you can if you put single-family homes. So I suspect that, you know, part of the reason for the desire to have more condominiums and apartments here is largely linked to the commercial return on that investment. And in some ways, you know, again, I think that the village is to some degree hampered by just what the, how can I put it, the number of units per acre is actually likely to be. I mean, obviously, with the 100 acres, you've got a very large acreage, and even if you had, I'm trying to think of the best maths of working this out, but if you had, let's say, 1,000 units in there, which would be quite a large number, 1,000 by 100 would mean that you'd have 1 unit per 10, a tenth. 10 units per acre, that's right. So, you know, again, that's what I think you have to work towards, or the village planning and zoning have to work towards. And I think they are, you know, to some extent hampered by just what limits and regulations they can put in place for the developers themselves. I know that just on that issue, one of the problems actually has been, I know that the public, of course, have raised their hands on a number of the developments that have taken place here in Estero, but actually a lot of the developers, and it's true, consider Estero to be one of the very hardest, not just in southwest Florida, but in the whole of Florida. There are so many regulations and steps that apparently are in place here that actually sometimes the developers really are very upset. So it's not just really all on us here. You know, there are balances and so forth. What I would, okay,
One more.
all right, okay. Yes.
Time frame on the sewers.
The sewers.
Oh, well,
System on West Broad.
that is another thing that's included in the December the 11th meeting. I have asked the council And we have a very good friend of mine who is sat at the back here, Mark Nowitzki. He has a colleague who is actually put a house down at the bottom end of Broadway, and he is also very concerned about exactly what this timetable is. The only thing I can tell you is that while everybody is perhaps concerned and upset that things haven't gone as quickly as they might, the large reason for this is grants. The village has been trying its best to get as much grant money as feasible to ensure that when this goes ahead, the people who are going to have this conversion don't end up having to pay as much money as they might. So, and unfortunately, even when a grant is promised, if you went ahead and started the work, you lose the grant. So, I mean, again, this is information that, of course, I've gained and Mark has gained from talking to the village. It is frustrating. I know Mark's very frustrated, but we have asked that David Willems comes to speak to us on December the 11th to give us an update on timing and costs as far as we have it, okay? I think I'll have to stop there because I do want, if there's time at the end, I'll catch up with any other questions in the end. But what I would ask you to do, because I don't want to spoil things for the questions that you may have if I can't get back to them, if you send your question to info, I-N-F-O, at esterotoday.com, I will receive it. Info at esterotoday.com, and I will get your question and I will answer it. Equally though, if it's a question about the developments here, you may want to go first to take a look at the posted document. That's the update. It was posted on the website in the middle of September, so it's very, very recent, but it's there. And you can search in the index, as I've said, to get to where you would like to see your answer. But if it's something different, please let me know. So thank you for your time. I appreciate your interest in this. And, thank you for bearing with me. It's a topic which I know is so important to you. And we do you know we get 5,000 hits on our website, particularly for that item per month. So it's a very important area. Yes. So, I'm going to hand over to Kevin Karnes, who has been very kind enough to come here today to give us some important news about keeping our homes as safe as we can. Kevin, thanks. If you need me to...
Thank you. Round of applause for Allan. Thank you, Allan. I was sitting here in marvel of how little he looked at his notes. I mean, he has this all up here. So thank you for the presentation, Allan. I certainly, he really is. I mean, and taking all these questions and not looking at a single thing in his hand. So I appreciate allowing me to speak today. And I appreciate you all for being engaged members of our society. It's really warming to my heart to see a group of people come together about their community and ask really well-informed questions. I certainly learned a lot about how much Estero is growing in the coming years or two, and that's partly why I'm here to speak to you today in regards to property fraud. I'll spend a bulk of my time speaking about that particular issue, but I wanted to give you a little bit about what your Clerk and Comptroller's office does for you since you are taxpayers in the county. And then we'll get into the actual meat of the program, which is property fraud. So my name is Kevin Karnes. I'm your elected Clerk of Court and Comptroller. I am a constitutional officer, which means I serve alongside with the sheriff, the property appraiser, the tax collector, the supervisor of elections, and your superintendent of schools. What that means is we get our job from the Florida Constitution, and we live, work, and play in Lee County just like you all do, and we represent all 890 square miles of Lee County. And so I am a Florida native. I grew up in North Florida, was born and raised in Baker County, Florida, if you've ever heard of it, on the I-10 corridor, and then came down to Lee County for college and never never looked back, fell in love with Southwest Florida, and don't plan on going anywhere. So I have a bachelor's degree from FGCU right around the corner here, and have a master's degree in legal studies. But I've been with the office for about 19 years now. So I started at the lowest level that you could come into, which is a part-time position, filing paperwork, and eventually grew up in the organization that catapulted me into politics, got a governor appointment, and have now been on the ballot twice in 3 years. So I've been doing the elected job for 3 years now. So a little bit about what your clerk's office does. I already said this. I work with almost all of the elected officials in the county, and we have 5 different hats that we wear, meaning myself, I am the clerk to the court. I am the ex officio clerk to the Board of County Commissioners, the county recorder, the custodian of all county funds, and the county auditor. So typically when I'm out in the community, I'm wearing at least one or more of those hats. Today, I'm going to be talking about the county recorder side, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But a lot of people in our community don't really know what a comptroller is, and that is where I hold all the Board of County Commissioners' money in order for them to spend that money on your behalf. So when they meet on the dais, they are voting to spend your taxpayer dollars. Well, we are the ones actually writing the check and doing all the accounting. And so it's about a $3 billion responsibility that I have on behalf of you all in this room. But we're not here to talk about all those other things that I do. It's really property fraud alert. Has anybody heard about property fraud? I guess the question would be, has anybody not heard about property fraud? And so I want to tell a brief story about how this came on my radar. So Linda Doggett was the prior clerk and comptroller, and she had worked in the office for 38 years. So as she was winding down her career, she was very gracious to promote me throughout the organization. And I spent most of my time in the courts department. And then when I got into the executive leadership capacity, I was learning the other areas of the office, which is that county recorder that I was telling you about. That's where all the land records are filed. That's where you get your marriage license and your passports. And we have all those documents from back when Lee County was first incorporated back in 1887. So we are kind of like a county historian, so to speak. Well, I was learning a little bit about the county recorder functions, and I was going to meet with the team, and I said, what issues or problems are you facing where I can help you? And they were telling me a story about, well, we have people in here complaining all the time about their properties being stolen. And I was like, what? That doesn't sound accurate to me. And so, not that I didn't trust my team, but I politely wanted to verify what they were saying. And eventually, it didn't take me very long to realize that it actually is shockingly easy for criminals to steal your property from you. And so the more that I dug into this issue, the more that I was like, this is not right. Like, we need to do something about that. Well, as a ministerial officer, which means I'm following the law. My job is not to create laws or interpret them. It's really to follow them. So I realized that the law was part of the problem when it comes to property fraud. So let's start at the 50,000-foot view. What is property fraud? And then we'll work our way through that journey, and then we'll end with some ways that you can protect yourself, and then I would love to take your questions on this. So property fraud in its simplest form is fake deeds being filed in your name. The easiest way of that happening is probably through a quick claim deed. So a criminal is basically fraudulating your signature and then to an unsuspecting person more than likely. And that unsuspecting person takes their quitclaim deed down to the county recorder's office. We look for it just for some authenticity. There's 5 things that the statute says that we have to look for. Think notary, stamp, signature. It's pretty easy, basic stuff. And as long as it's got that 5 things on it, we are required by law to accept it. So if this wonderful lady came into my office and said, hi, this is a fake deed that I want you to file, and it has all those 5 elements on it, I'm required to file that document. And once the document is filed, that, in a sense, transfers property. I mean, as the land record owner, I then take that document and send it over to the property appraiser, who now knows who to contact about how much your value is worth. So myself, the property appraiser, and the tax collector all have a piece of the puzzle when it comes to your property rights, and that's by design. I won't get into that too terribly much, but that is the simplest form of property fraud. If somebody is filing a quitclaim deed that you are not aware of, and then the property is, in a sense, stolen from you. And so that's the simplest form. There are multiple levels of property fraud. You might hear title fraud or seller impersonation fraud. And so you might have your home listed on like a Zillow or realtor.com and someone has listed your property at under market values. And so then they're telling the person on the other end of the internet, we can skip this real estate mumbo jumbo and I can give you a quick claim deed and then we'll be done with this. So just imagine if your house was valued at $500,000, but they listed it at $350,000. Someone's going, that's a really good deal to get that piece of property. Well, $350,000 to a criminal is an excellent payday. And so really, when you hear the adage, it's too good to be true, more than likely, it's always too good to be true. And so that's the simplest that I can put property fraud. And you're going, well, how do we fix it? How do we get past this? How do I protect myself? And it's a complicated journey. I'm learning that the more that I dive into this issue, it's been 3 years and I continue to learn about how complicated real estate transactions are. And so before I get into the service that we provide, you realize, well, how are people finding out that they're a victim of this crime? The pieces of the puzzle are your trim notice and your tax bill. Those are the two official pieces of mail that come from the property appraiser or tax collector to let you know what your property is valued and how much taxes you owe. If you're not getting that document, that is probably a sign that you should be doing something to make sure you're the rightful owner of your property. And that's really the biggest trigger point. People are saying, I didn't get my tax bill. They call the government and the government says, well, you're no longer the owner. And they go, what do you mean I'm no longer the owner? Well, then to come find out, you don't realize that you were a victim of this crime. And so what we are trying to do is if the crime happened in January, but you didn't get your trim notice in August, that criminal is gone, to be quite frank. I mean, that period of time is too long for law enforcement to do an effective investigation. So we needed to take small bites out of the apple, basically, and so shorten that month time frame down to something a little bit more reasonable, which gets me to my very first service. You may have heard home lock or title lock on the airwaves, maybe on the TV. This is a local version called Property Fraud Alert, and so it's a completely free service that my office provides, which is the exact same service that they are charging you for a premium, and arguably cannot protect you the same way that your county comptroller and sheriff's office can do. So much that I've sat on the phone with those vendors and asked them to walk me through how it would protect them, and I get transferred 8 ways from Sunday. So the point is, I hope you trust this service a little bit more because I'm accountable to you, the voters of Lee County, and it's completely free. And so what this process is a 5-field form that you can probably fill out right now on our website. It's probably on the next slide, but it's your first name, your last name, your email address twice with an added step just to confirm your email address. And once you register for that service, if a document is filed in your registered name, we will let you know within 24 hours. So not a perfect answer because it's still after the fact, but we're taking that 8 to 10 month problem from before and getting it down to one business day. So this is the QR code if you're comfortable with QR codes. On the left-hand side is anything that's Lee County specific, but all 67 clerk's offices in the state have this exact same service. So if you have property in other areas of the state, the QR code on the right there will give you a list of all the counties. So you can go to their website and do that. And you're going, well, that sounds inefficient. Well, you got to remember, county recorders we stop at the boundaries of our county. So I can't help you with Collier County, I can't help you with Charlotte County, but I can help you with Lee County. So this is really a helpful service to you all. And if you go, I don't have internet, I don't have an email address, my recommendation would be to find a trusted friend or family member or coworker or someone to register on your behalf. And the whole point is that if you get an email, let's go to the next slide here. If you get the email, this is the process of actually registering. If you get an email, do not panic right away. There is a world where you register for the service, you get an email, and it might be your refinance, or it might be a notice of commencement. So the point is to make sure you do your research when you get the email, because it may not be something for you to act on. But if you get the email and you realize that it's not a transaction that you were expecting, you need to call the law enforcement agency within your jurisdiction. So for Estero, that will be the sheriff's office. If you actually own property in Cape Coral or incorporated in Fort Myers, you would need to call the Cape Coral Police Department or the Fort Myers Police Department. The sooner the better, because a lot of these crimes are happening online, which is very difficult for law enforcement to investigate. So make sure that you register for this free service. There are 550,000 parcels of land in Lee County. It's one of the most plotted properties or counties in the entire United States, which makes us ripe for this sort of crime to begin with. Add in that we are in paradise and that we are growing very quickly, and that is why we're finding these problems in our community. And it does happen. We are actively tracking some cases of property fraud locally. My team just brought me one just yesterday that we are trying to dive in to the questions on. So my whole point is to please register for that service. Do not be alarmed, but make sure you act quickly in the event that you do get that email. We do have computers in our lobbies in order for you to do that. So yes, sir, you can come in person and do that. We stop short of actually registering for you because this is a service that you have to put your information into. So we can't monitor that. We're not responsible for it. We just want to make sure that you're doing, we're providing you everything that we can to make sure that your property is safe.
Thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Yeah, I personally believe one property is too much. I mean, we spend a lot of money, we have a lot of memories in our properties, and we need to make sure that these criminals are held accountable. It is name based. So good point. If there's multiple Gregory Lawrences in the county, you may get emails that are not related to you.
I
But
wanted
you,
to thank
but thank
because
you.
We always get it.
Perfect.
We always
And if
get
you are tired of getting those Gregory Lawrence emails, you can put in your parcel numbers as well. So if you have a very common name, there is a way to get the net a little bit more narrow to the properties that you
Well, we know
actually
who's buying.
own. Yeah, that's true. And this is just the tip of the iceberg for me. I mean, I didn't even get into but my last 2 years I've been working with the Florida legislature, and we have a pilot program that just ended where the statute allowed the clerk's office to accept government-issued IDs along with the deed. And to the best of my knowledge, it's definitely the first program like that in the state of Florida. We were kind of leading the way in regards to that legislation, and I'm pretty confident that it's the first program like that in the nation. I've had county recorders call me from all over the United States asking what we're doing. And so I could speak about property fraud literally for hours. I mean, I know that there are really smart people in this community, obviously all across Florida, that are dedicated to solving this problem. Title companies, underwriters, realtors, you name it, we're all working on how to solve this problem, and there is no one easy solution. People want something like a credit freeze. That's probably the most common idea that I hear people is like, hey, can you just freeze this for a little bit? And in theory, it sounds like a perfect solution, right? But in practicality, it's almost impossible to enforce and to build. So long story short, I'm not going anywhere on Property Fraud Alert. I come out at least once a week probably and talk to groups just like this one about being registered. So I'm going to ask of you all today is obviously to register your own property, but to feel free sharing this information with your friends, your neighbors, and your relatives and coworkers to try to get me to my 550,000 goal. I got a long way to go because the system right now is name-driven, not property-driven. So we're trying to meld those two together. I have a vision of creating this heat map to where I can see where people in the community are actually registering. So I'll be able to determine where I need to go speak and actually force them to sign up for this free service. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I can keep going but I want to be sensitive to everybody's times. It's an honor to serve this community, and I'd be happy to take any questions, which I see a couple of hands. Yes, sir.
Once they transfer the property, what do they do with it? I mean, how do they profit?
So what happens, and then that's what's so complicated about this problem is keys and money have already swapped hands in a traditional real estate situation. And so think of the property fraud as layers of risk. Vacant properties are going to be your biggest risk. So if you have a vacant piece of land, there are no keys to kind of switch over. And you're not required to have title insurance for vacant pieces of land. And so that's going to be your largest area of risk. Houses or properties that do not have a mortgage on it are going to be your next level of risk. But they're very similar because criminals don't care about liens and title insurance. And so,
Excuse me, how does that work? If your house is paid for, say I have the entire deed,
Mm-hmm.
it's filed, I mean, you have a record of that deed. My
I do.
realtor 7 years ago told me that you would have a record of the
Mm-hmm.
deed,
that's true.
so I could still,
So to answer both of your questions, I mean, I don't want to tell you how to commit this fraud. I mean, because it's but it's actually, I mean, this is how simple it is. I can go to your, if I knew your name, I could go to the website, find a copy of your signature, create a quitclaim deed, fake your signature, and get a notary to notarize it. And that's the key point. Notary's got to be doing their piece of the puzzle as well. But if you just created a notary stamp or found a notary that wasn't doing their job, you come to my office, you pay $10 to record that quitclaim deed, bada bing, bada boom, property fraud's done. You wouldn't know about it until you get your, since trim notices have already gone out, you probably wouldn't know about it at least until tax bills are sent out in November, which means there's 4 or 5 months where the criminal has gotten away with it. So that's, don't tell the sheriff's office that I just told you how to commit that fraud. Like, I'm not trying to give legal advice, but I want to tell you, like, that's how simple it is. Yes, ma'am.
I still don't understand, how does the perp make money?
So think about it where I'm the criminal and I go, hey, I list your property and I go, hey, do you want to buy this property for $200,000? And you're going, that's easily worth $500,000. I go, hey, you just give me some cash. I'll give you the quitclaim deed. And then once you give me the cash, I've faked the signature because really you're not in the question here. And so I take the money, I give you this fake document and I'm out of here. Because more than likely you don't know who I am. I'm impersonating you. And so that's why this crime is so dangerous, because it's very difficult to capture the criminal. So that's how they're making money in one form of this property fraud. So the next big layer that I've learned about is people who steal your identities and then take out loans and lines of credit on your property. And so they are really getting creative on how to get your information. So when you see that Target had a breach, more than likely, if Target had your social security number and stuff like that, they know how to basically dot the I's. Once I know who you are, I can look at the county records website, determine what property that you own. Then I can go to a bank, fill out an application for a HELOC for any sum of money. And then that's another way that these criminals are making money. So
Unless you have a credit freeze, if you have a credit freeze,
Yeah.
they're not gonna get it.
So before I promise I'll get to your question. I just don't remember. Don't want to forget this thought. Something that you can do to protect yourself outside of that property fraud alert is go to those websites like Zillow and the VRBOs. There's a whole bunch of them. A lot of them have functionality where you can claim your property, which makes it a little bit harder for someone to list your properties without you knowing. That's going to be a really good thing for you to do. Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist don't have things like that. So, I mean, if you have time to go check those websites, that might be helpful. The surest fire way, and I hate this because it sounds asinine, is to regularly check the property appraiser's website that you are the registered owner of your own home, which sounds mind-blowing, but that is going to be the most reliable and effective way. So do it every month or quarter for it. One more question, and I'll stick around for all the questions. Let's take one in the back.
Put your comptroller hat on for a minute.
I sure can.
Is Lee County in a cash flow crisis or slowdown here?
No, sir.
It seems like all the public works, the roads and other things are all slowing down. And somebody wants to try to blame it on the rain or,
No.
There's a sewer pipe in the way. But every project from Legal Road, Horseshoe Whitey and others have all been a year beyond what they're scheduled for. And the only thing that makes sense to me is cash flow. You don't have the money to pay.
That's a question for your county commissioners, but what I can say from my perspective as comptroller is they had a huge influx in grant money, which are one-time costs, one-time projects. So they front-loaded all of those infrastructure projects with that grant money. And now that those projects are coming to complete or those grant monies are running out is why you're seeing the traffic projects kind of slow down. Your county commissioners are going to talk about transportation and infrastructure a lot. You have to ask them about where they plan to do that in the county. So, great question. Let's do one more if you don't mind. Yes, ma'am.
Once you notify us within 24 hours that you legally had to transfer my property, what can I do to get it back?
So, great question. And so, unfortunately, because I'm just a follower of the law, you have to sue the person that owns the property and prove to a court of law that you were the registered owner. So it's going to cost you some money and some legal fees in order to demonstrate to the judge that you were the rightful owner. And so I'm actually going up to Tallahassee in the very near future to actually talk about property fraud. I mean, I'm doing all that I can about this issue, but unfortunately, we're still a little behind on how to best protect your most valuable asset. So.
Do you have the physical deed in your, I mean,
Yes.
like-
Yeah. So what's going to happen is you're going to say, "Hey, Kevin, you shouldn't have accepted this deed." I'm going to go, "That was the law," and then you're going to go, "Well, I want you to remove it." And I go, "I can't remove it. Once I put it into the filing cabinet, so to speak, the law says that only a judge can order me to remove that document." So that's why you have to go back to court, make your case, and then the judge will say, "Kevin, leave it alone," or "Kevin, take that document out." And so we got lots of work to do for property fraud. It's an honor to serve. I'll stick around and ask for any questions, but again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Kevin, thank you so very, very much for obviously this very important issue and bringing it, in the personal way that you have to light. So, I really appreciate that too. Ladies and gentlemen, we only have a couple more minutes to run, if you would bear with me just for a couple of seconds. I just wanted to make a couple of important points. We normally do this at the end of a meeting, have the President's report. Basically, what I wanted to do, let me just, I just wanted to show you, oops. Right. What I wanted to explain was something which I did, of course, for you, and I spoke about a little earlier, which was the amount of time and effort that goes into some of the things that my colleagues and I actually do. This, I showed you earlier, of course, the value and the importance of this very extensive document that I held up for you. It's difficult to put a value on how much time and effort this takes for residents here in Estero. As you know, none of the people who work within Engage Estero, nor prior to that in ECCL, aside from our webmaster and the person who turns what we produce into the excellent format that you receive when you see it either sent to you by email or you see it on the website. And that's Kim Daly, and she runs her own organization and has done for many, many years. She's probably one of the longest standing people who's been working with ECCL and Engage Estero in the current set of circumstances. So she's the only one that actually receives any money for all the work that we do. But I just thought it would be interesting to explain to you what actually would be the commercial value for the amount of time very, very senior people who work in Engage Estero produce for you. And you can see here that based on the number of hours and even allowing for only a much more modest hourly rate than many of the people who work in Estero with me actually could charge because of their past history in the types of companies that they've worked in as CEOs and so forth, then actually this report here, which I held up, if it had been commercially produced and paid for, would have actually cost $38,000. Did you believe that? I mean, it's an interesting piece of math to do that. So, what people get from Engage Estero, I think, is not really ordinarily thought of in this kind of valuation process. And I did another set of maths. Mark Nowitzki, my good colleague, and I were talking about, well, how much time do people within Engage Estero put into all the things that they do? And we have, as I say, a staff not including the volunteers who go out and remove the rubbish from the roads, which we have such an important person, Julie Yelig, who has done this with the Adopt a Highway program, and there are many other offshoots of it in Estero. But we're not even counting them, nor the people who work with the schools for junior achievement. They're not listed either here. So, if you added all those people up together, we'd be, approaching probably somewhere in the 100 or so. This is just the team here, with the board of directors, the executive management team. And again, if we were to look at all of these people with the number of hours that are put in week by week, actually, it would cost $1.9 million to pay these people. That would be a very large organization that would be a commercial company. And when I was running the market research consultancy that I ran for many years, we would used to find that as a general rule of thumb, the charge or the cost of the employees would need to be doubled to give us an idea of what our annual support would actually run to, because of course all of the other administrative charges of where the building is and so on and so forth would have to be paid. So a commercial organization like us, if it was actually in place and everybody was getting paid, would actually be worth about $4 million a year. So, you're getting us cheap. But one little thing which happened very recently, we obviously would like to continue to have your support. Your support is wonderful. What you've done today by being here is very important. Of course, we will have the YouTube video posted for those people who weren't able to come today. And of course, we'll do a short write-up as well that we'll post for you. So there's a lot of things that we still need to do to make sure that, you obviously have all the information. But in return, there are many, many costs that we have to address. We are having a public forum next year on where is Estero going. That's another date that you really need to be putting in your diaries. That's going to be on March the 17th. And we have a wonderful panel which includes one of the senior directors at the Hoffman Group. You may know that the Hoffman Group, of course, had a very big role in the development of Naples, and they're looking towards doing much the same here in terms of supporting Estero. We have the head of the Florida Gulf Coast University, Dr. Timmer, is on the panel. We have Chris Simoneau, who is a senior director at Lee Health, talking about what developments Lee Health are planning within our community. And we have our own manager, Steve Sarkozy, of course, who is instrumental in many of the things that happen here on the panel. So that's for March the 17th, and we'll be sending more details about that. But to put that actual project together and put it on, is about $20,000. And there are many, many other things that go into us, go into what we do. So we really would love to have, even if it's a small donation, if all of the people, we have an email list that prefer to receive our emails. Do you know how big that is these days? Because it's been growing like topsy, because it's nice to have the feedback that people enjoy and are very appreciative of what we do. That list is now 15,000 people here in Estero and Greater Estero. 15,000 people want to receive our communications. If everybody gave us $50, that would be a wonderful opportunity, not because we want to pay ourselves. One of the things that I thought was extremely important when we had the hurricanes blow through, there were so many people devastated down on Broadway, and Engage Estero was one of the first organizations to try and run and obtain, donations to try and cover those poor people who had so much damage done to their homes. And it was really sad. I read many, many letters to us about why they wanted the money. And the sad thing was that even though we had, well over $500,000 provided, all of which every single dollar was given out, we couldn't do that quickly. It takes time to organize all of that. So I thought it would be a very good idea to have an emergency fund set up. And of course we would put that in escrow and have it available for people when and how they needed it. But we can't do that without any donations. One of the other things that we do, and this is a really lovely example of the things that we would like to do more of. This is in fact a presentation to the Three Oaks Elementary School. And they wanted a donation to provide support for their children, you know, sort of like in the ages of 7 to 9. When I was there to see them, they were wonderful children. And Molly Roberts wanted to have money to set up what she called a support for science, math, technology, and so forth, as a laboratory. She wanted to buy things to help to get the children to appreciate more on the things that she could buy, what all of these different important subjects would help do for them in their learning. And we were able to support her. She wanted $2,500. And the children and she and the principal and vice principal were so appreciative of what we did. And when I was there, I asked the children a question. I asked the teachers if I could ask a question, and I said, hands up, children, any of you who like science? And it was incredible. Do you know, the hands, every single child put their hand up immediately to indicate, you know, that was their love, that they wanted to learn more about science. It was very humbling to be there and, you know, to see how hard these teachers work and what thoughts they have, you know, to help their children. And, you know, it just made me feel, gosh, you know, if we could just do so much more for all of these people in the schools. I mean, we do actually have grants. We provide for our own Estero High School around the corner. We get the children to write essays, and we provide, you know, support money for them with their education here. But it's not enough, I don't think, from my side anyway. I'd love to see more done, and we would be certainly more than happy to share with you what we do with greater donations that we have. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, you know, having poured my heart out a little bit for you there, I apologize, but it's, you know, it's something I think all of us, you know, this is not just me here standing in front of you. Engage Estero is a team effort. I couldn't be here today without all of the other people who work with me to do all the things that they do. You can't believe how important all of their support work is. I say it many times to them, and I'm saying it to you, because it is, you know, not just a one-person affair, it's a team affair. And I'd like to thank again Kevin for his, you know, time and effort to come here today to talk to us. And I know that Mary, of course, would have loved to have been here, but I hope I didn't disappoint you with the discussions about what I wanted to talk to you about. So thank you so much, and have a very good rest of the morning, and enjoy the rest of your time here in Estero.